session is going to be on defense PSUs. Defense PSUs, opportunities and challenge, and the road ahead. Often we know, since India got independence, the entire defense sector, entire defense production was in the hands of the defense PSUs. And they have been contributing to the growth of the country in their own way. While there are mixed responses in the country about the output of PSUs, somehow, and I'll quote it, because somehow adherent circumstances have projected the DPSUs in the low light. However, it is one of the most burning topics today when we talk of the defense production and self-reliance. Defense PSUs have their own challenges. They're working with their own paraphernalia. And in today's scenario, when they have to compete with the private sector partner, things are a bit different. On one side, they have huge opportunities lying in front of them. They have got developing avenues. And on the other hand, they have got several challenges, both internal and external. So we have an expert panel to discuss it. Let me introduce you with the panel. So our first keynote speaker would be Mr. M.V. Rajashekhar. He's the Chairman and Managing Director, Director Mining and Construction, and Director HR with additional charge of BEML Limited. Mr. Rajashekhar has got more than 31 years of varied experience spread across several functions like research and development, production, planning, outsourcing, and marketing. He has been involved with production of equipment, aggregates of mining and construction, defense, rail, and metro businesses. And prior to assuming this position, he was the Executive Director, Mining and Construction Business. He's a graduate in Metallurgical Engineering from VNIT Nagpur, and he's an MTech in Welding Engineering from IIT Chennai. In addition to this, he's done his MS in Technology Management in Germany. The next speaker with us is Dr. S.K. Jha. He's the CMD of Mishra Dhatu Nigam Limited. Today, when we talk about our missile program, we talk about our space program. He's the man Friday. He's worked for more than 27 years in the Department of Atomic Energy and has made number of technological innovations in processing of nuclear materials of different grade, such as difficult to hot work alloy. And he has developed a process to develop unique properties in pressure tube, which is a lifetime component. Pressure tube is a lifetime component for the nuclear power reactors. Dr. Jha has received many awards and recognition for his efforts at MFC. The most notable among them is Award for Excellence in Science Technology for the year 2006 from Department of Atomic Energy and the Best Corporate Governance Award 2019. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Engineering from Homi Bhabha National Institute, and he's also a Metallurgical Engineering graduate from NIT Jamshedpur in 1988. Our next keynote speaker is Mr. Arup Chatterjee. He's a Director Engineering R&D of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Mr. Arup Chatterjee has got over 36 years of experience in aerospace industry. He has served in various divisions of HAL. He was head of machine shop, methods department, IMM department, projects, planning of avionics equipment required for Russian and Western origin aircraft platform in Korva division, where he served for 28 years, which is important when we talk about DPSUs and production. It is his role has been quite important. He has served in Kanpur division for 4 years in the field of airframe manufacturing, and has served in the capacity of head of the IJT project planning and IMM for Dornier Avro and UAV project. He has served in Koraput division of HAL, where he had immensely contributed to various programs like overhaul of R25, R29B, and R33 engines of mixed series aircraft, as well as manufacture and repair overhaul of AL31 FP engines for Su-30 aircrafts. Prior to this position, he was the General Manager of Aircraft Research and Design Center. And here comes our sessions chair. The sessions chair for this session would be Dr. Deepak Hota. He's the former CMD of BEML. Dr. Hota has initiated various innovative measures during his tenure with BEML about expansion of business, indigenization, R&D, cost control, in addition to HRD, and continuously striving to take the company to the greater heights. He is an alumnus from St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, and a postgraduate in personal management from XLRI Jamshedpur. With more than 35 years of industry experience, including 5 years of board experience. I would welcome this esteemed panel today, and I would now request Dr. Hota to kindly assume the chair and take on the session, please.
Thank you very much. At the outset, I would like to thank GCTC for having given me this opportunity to chair this session. It's always wonderful to see old colleagues and friends. Mr. Rajshekhar, my old friend from BEML, current CMD, Jha Midhani, MD, CMD Midhani, Mr. Chatterjee, I think we met in the corridors of Delhi sometime, HAL. I'll be very brief. I think we have 1 hour. So what we will do is, we will roughly give about 10 to 15 minutes to each person to speak about the opportunities and challenges. The topic is opportunity, challenges, and the way forward. So when you talk about the opportunities, typically the challenges are also intertwined, and that can also be converted to opportunities. So we will initially focus each speaker on the opportunities and challenges. Then at the end of it, we will have a kind of a concluding session wherein each one of us, we will give a way forward. We will try to be very specific so that these can be actioned, and it'll be relevant. Otherwise, we will be theorizing a lot of stuff, and I think we are all from the industry, so we can do that. If that is okay, we will start. But before we do, I would just like to create a little context. The topic in itself is extremely interesting. And at such times, when we are talking of OAB being corporatized, defense PSU, some of them getting disinvested, privatized, and we are talking about increasing the private sector participation in the defense space, which is very, very important. And there has been a slew of measures by the government, and rightly so, extremely positive, be it the IDEX, be it the funds created for developing R&D, the focus on Aatmanirbhar by the Honorable Prime Minister, the Make in India. There has been a slew of stuff. But when we look at the role of DPSUs, they have performed a stellar role. But I think a time has come when we are at crossroads. We ourselves need to introspect. Is this relevant for us? Is it the way forward? What we can do? I was hearing the previous session where Dr. Suvarna Raju was chairing it. There was a lot of talk of, spare parts not being there, service not happening, etc., etc. Now, end of the day, we are all commercial organizations. If we do not look at what is in it for me, what is the commercial angle, I cannot go and, create something for the Army, Navy, Air Force. There has to be minimum order quantity. We need to look at how long it takes to get an order. We need to look at what is the foreign exchange implication. Basically, the time taken to place orders is something that really comes in the way. And this is what I had seen when I was there. I saw in one of the previous session slides, the ARV WZT3 issue was being raised. Now, this is an order which has been, holding on for the last 5 to 6 years because of foreign exchange regulation. So anyway, be as it may, we need to look at all this. But I think this is an opportunity for us to really redesign ourselves, our systems, our processes, try to move to business on competition mode, get new technologies, get the capex, trigger new investments, enable introduction of digitization, industry 4.0, etc., etc. Today, it is all driven by MOU that we put, ministry mandates that we should do this much of exports, this much of R&D. Now, exports has already, been figuring in our list of priorities, but for a variety of reasons, we need to push more and more. And currently, MOD is really doing a lot on that. We need to do a lot there. Simultaneously, the armed forces are also focusing on upgradation, and rightly so. As was said in the previous session speaker, CIPRI has come out with a study to say that a third of the imports has reduced, which is a very good thing. I am told there are enough capacities in the world, and therefore, does it make sense for us to go for greenfield? Does it make sense for us to go and take over these companies? There's a lot of spare capacity lying in East European countries, which are going for a song. So can we look at them? It requires a mindset issue. TOT is a thing of the past. How do we move ahead? After getting the TOT, how do we internalize, absorb, and then develop the Indian design and move forward? I think this is very, very important. The design in India, how can we get there? It cannot have an overnight. We can get very emotional and we can say, yes, we will do it. But I think in the previous session, I heard a gentleman called Samir. He spoke of the aerospace and drones. When you hear speakers like him, you realize in India, there's a whole lot of opportunities, whole lot of stuff which is happening, but it is not enough. We need to, when we talk of self-reliance, it doesn't mean that we are going to be only isolated and working alone. We have to collaborate with the rest of the world. So what does self-reliance mean to each one of you? That is something we can have a conversation on. How do we become nimble-footed and agile? I think in PSUs, for a variety of reasons, not to blame anybody, we are aware of the fact that agility and nimbleness is something because of the processes, systems, the time it takes to get approvals, etc., etc. So what we can do on that? Consistency of orders. There were times when BML, we had, very, very low orders from the defense, and we have a defense vertical. So if we have capacities invested, if we have technologies and capex invested, what do we do unless there is consistency of orders? What are the strategic partnerships that we are going to look at? I think that is something which I may request all the speakers to speak of. The government has come out with the defense corridors, and I think that affords a huge opportunity for all of us. So we can look at that. And lastly, but not the least, in the recent past, there was a mandate from the Honorable PMO's office and MOD that each DPSU should come out with its own growth-oriented strategy. We, for one, in BEML at that time, we engaged McKinsey, and we are working on the growth strategy. So I'm sure others must be also doing it. So with that context, maybe, we can start off. What I will do is I will request in the reverse order, Arupji, if you can start off, and you have about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm aware you have to, I think, go somewhere. So if you want, you can come out with your way forward also. But otherwise, I can assure you, you'll be missing out on the discussion, and we are going to have real, very good discussions with Rajshekhar and Jhasab over there. All yours, Arupji. About 15 minutes is what you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. And especially, I was continuously looking at the watch. So you gave me this opportunity to speak first. Many, many thanks for that. And I would like to thank GCTC for giving me this opportunity to speak on this subject. Okay, so am I audible? Hello?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if we look back at the history, sir, it can be seen that India missed the Industrial Revolution as the country was under the British imperial rule. And the industries were primarily seen by the British as something that had to be exploited to help the British industry rather than to promote India's own industrial development. After the Indian independence, public sector companies created by the new government led by Pandit Nehru to spearhead the rapid industrialization of the newborn nation. His vision was to occupy the commanding heights of the Indian economy. That the burden of industrial development of India from independence to 1991, majorly shouldered by the PSUs, this is matter of historical record. The private sector, which played a subsidiary role till the transformative economic reforms began in 1990, rapidly gained share in the Indian industry due to the liberalization and globalization measures which were unleashed during 90s. In several sectors, including telecom, machine tools, petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, the private sector progressively pushed the PSUs. However, despite the assertive and dominant private sector presence in several sectors, DPSUs remain the flag bearers of indigenous design, development, and manufacturing capabilities in the defense domain. Although the FDI limits with respect to the defense sector were relaxed progressively to enable the entry and growth of the private sector, the first real challenge to the dominance of DPSUs came in 2016, when the Defense Procurement Policy 2016 ushered in the strategic partnership model and the make to procedure. Hota sahab, you have just touched upon what is that strategic partnership model. The fact that India remained a prominent importer of foreign defense equipment, arms, and ammunition, despite the presence of the DRDO, DPSUs, and the OFB in the sector for several decades, might have convinced and through policy tools to deliberate ease the grappling hold of DPSUs which they had over the private sector to create a level playing field. The Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020 has taken these policy interventions to a higher level by increasing the mandatory indigenous content, creating a category for Buy Global, Make in India, and a new procedure for leasing. At first sight, these changes might appear to be in favor of privatization of the defense sector at the cost of DPSUs. However, a deeper analysis would reveal that the new policies offer a wide range of opportunities for the DPSUs themselves. If I talk of this, firstly, the preamble of the policy, if we see that defense acquisition procedure itself, they delves profusely on the self-reliance in the defense sector. As DPSUs have a massive head start over the private sector, and as the private sector will take at least a decade to catch up to the extent sufficient to pose a serious threat to the DPSUs, there is enough breathing space available to the DPSUs to become much more competitive and reach the global standards. Secondly, the Buy IDDM. The Buy IDDM, that is indigenously designed, developed, and manufactured, is the most preferred category of acquisition. As of today, in the case of bigger platforms which account for a large fraction of acquisitions, DPSUs, OFB, the DRDO, CSIR are the only ones that have such IDDM products to offer. So the private sector involvement and share of business will remain limited to critical but in terms of quantity, but quite modest in terms of value. While several major private companies can quickly scale up for manufacture of platforms based on transfer of technology, this capability alone will not enable them to offer the IDDM platforms, as they are yet to demonstrate meaningful design and development capabilities. Thirdly, even the strategic partnership policy has a stipulation that the capabilities, capacities, and the price competitiveness of DPSUs and OFB should be considered at the appropriate stages of acquisition under the strategic partnership policy. So in cases where indigenous platforms already exist, or where the existing platforms can be customized and recertified by the DPSUs or OFBs, it would be difficult for decision makers to ignore this fact and procure a basically foreign platform under the SP policy. One of the examples is this is the reason why naval utility helicopter, which was declared to be procured or manufactured through SP route, is yet to take off, as the indigenously developed ALH of HL can meet the requirement. An inherent strength of DPSUs is the long-term product support capability established over several decades. Taking HL as an example, it has 8 decades of experience in design, development, manufacture of the aircraft. Its capabilities are established a long time through taking risk and learning from experiences in a relentless pursuit for excellence. Now, HL has been supporting even legacy platforms like Cheetah, Chetak helicopters for the past several decades and has committed to support them for another 15 years. Now, the first Avro aircraft, if we take for an example, was delivered in 1964. HL is still maintaining those aircraft of the services after 56 years and years to go. It is doubtful whether any private sector, more often than not which are driven by some short-term profit motives, will be able to commit themselves to supporting defense customer for 30, 40 years and doing midlife upgrades. And now, if I talk of the challenges, the primary challenge is probably, I feel, is in retaining the talent, especially in the design domain. One of the means by which private sector builds up capability is by poaching key specialists from the competitors, or by inducing migration through offering higher pay, joining bonuses, etc. As DPSUs, DRDO and OFB remain the main pool of such valuable human capital, protecting this pool from predatory raids by the private sector will be certainly a huge challenge. Despite the private sector penchant for pleading for a level playing field, the stark reality is that it is the DPSUs that desperately lack such level playing field. Probably it is my own version, but what I feel is that the DPSUs are treated as extension. As such, they are bound by several government policies, reservation policies, subject to scrutiny by CVC, CAG, etc. Even the pay scales are dictated by government policies. Customer access to book of accounts are there, and this severely inhibits the DPSU's freedom to price their products and services. The effect is that during price negotiation, privy to the minutest details of the cost structure of the DPSU products. The private industry, on the other hand, is not subject to any of these restrictions. This undue advantage to the private sector begs the question as to who should be given the protection of a level playing field. DPSUs like HL that are vertically integrated will face price pressure from private companies who might offer equipment at cheaper prices. So it might become increasingly difficult to make an equipment form just because they belong to the product portfolio. Similar arguments will apply to arms and ammunition also. Once the private sector begin to offer this, DPSUs and OFB will increasingly face the cost pressure. Cost reduction will therefore become a big challenge for DPSUs and OFB. The day is not far off when equipment made by HL or BL might not become part of the military platform by default. Most of the advanced equipment. It is a fact that DPSUs and even the DRDO source several such critical technologies through foreign collaboration. Once the private sector is enabled to do similar sourcing of critical technologies, the monopolistic advantage hitherto enjoyed by this arms of state, the DPSUs, DRDO, CSI, NL will evaporate quite quickly. Now, I would just touch upon the road ahead, coming to the road ahead for DPSUs. The future of the DPSUs will depend mainly on how they are able to adjust to the new paradigm where price will be dominant factor, along with technological prowess where the human capital will be eroded away by the private sector through predatory tactics. There is a strategize if DPSUs have to survive and flourish in the long term. There's no room for complacency anymore. The DPSUs like HL will have to become more fleet-footed. I think Bharat Sahab has touched upon this in terms of internal policies, procedure and processes. Bureaucratic procedures and handoff management styles are totally incompatible with the governance model required for future. The bulky manuals, the lengthy procedures that inhibit decision and action should give way to simpler and more effective guidelines that foster a culture of quick decision making. Secondly, the excess manpower will have to be shared to reduce the overall cost and improve efficiency. High labor cost is the main, we have to check it on for getting the price competitiveness. Thirdly, as pay scales, etc., cannot be changed at will, the HR policies will have to be aligned towards job enrichment, improve employee engagement. And DPSUs need to shed monopolistic overconfidence, what I feel in their own indispensability. Underestimating or ignoring the competition has caused several firms to self-destruct. Therefore, keeping a watchful eye on the competitor actions and looking out for emergence of new competitors will be essential for survival. Business intelligence as a new era of competence should enter the main thing of DPSUs. In conclusion, the opportunities for DPSUs remain as strong mentioned earlier are also not insurmountable. Most DPSUs, including HL, are acutely aware of these challenges and adapting fast to meet them. Thank you.
Now there is a time when we have to compete, and perhaps in a very Freudian slip way, you did mention the adversarial relationship, perhaps, which is there in the minds of PSU, saying that private sector is coming at the cost of public sector. I would say that a time has come when private sector and public sector has to integrate together. See, on the one hand, we say design talent is getting poached, and the other hand, we are saying our labor cost is high, and the other hand, we are also saying our cost of people, what we pay the managerial is dictated by the government. There are a whole lot of issues you have brought in. A private sector guy has his own flexibility, but end of the day, you and me are in a public sector. We are governed by certain rules which has come over the years. We cannot wish it away. But I think this is a time when we can really improve our efficiency. In the MOU, they talk of succession planning has to be there, create surplus pool of talent, create layers. So these are ways of looking at it. I'm aware of the DPSU pricing policy. We really have to go by that. But, that's the way it is. So thank you very much. We will, Jha CMD Midhani. Can I request you to start? I know Midhani has done fantastic work on alloys, and there's a lot of import substitution they are doing. Mr. Jha's predecessor, Dr. Likhi, was also a very dear friend, as is Dr. Jha. So Jha, all yours. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, and respected the chairman of the session and all my co-panelists and all the participants. It's a very important topic which is close to our heart, that challenge and opportunity for the defense PSU. See, I can tell you, in the entire defense manufacturing, first we start with the requirements. What is the requirement by the services? And based on the requirements, the design has to be frozen. And as the design is frozen, it requires a lot of validation. And after that validation and trials, then it goes for the production, R&D. So this is a complex system wherein defense system is working. Now, in this entire scenario where the defense PSU exists, I will say the defense PSU has a combination of more or less for all ingredients, which as today when we are discussing here, as rightly told by Hota Sahab, that what is the challenges? Normally, the requirements, the flow of the orders, the need for our defense systems, the clarity and the time delay for processing requirements creates a lot of confusion, and that gives a big break in our system where the efficiency or delivery gets affected. So in this entire scenario, if you see the same type of requirements coming from the foreign OEMs, they will be trying to prove their credentials, and this process, they take this opportunity and then they enter in our system. It is also the fact that because of this type of constants, our design system, our validation is improving as it is supposed to be. So unless the opportunity is given, it is not possible to have the growth in the system. So today, as you know, the defense PSU has a big contribution. The more than 60,000 crores of our turnover is coming in the defense manufacturing for the defense PSU. And of course, now the private sector also has joined, and they are also contributing in the big way. But then their contribution is still far less than compared to the defense PSU. So where, as chairman of the session rightly told, it is not in isolation. The defense ecosystem, when we are talking about the current DAP 2020, or we are talking the modified defense policy, or also we see that creation of the negative import list, the entire combination has to work as a complete ecosystem. Now, in this process, what I feel, what is happening, that instead of trying to join the strength of each other, we are trying to compete with each other. And that gives a lot of misconception in the field that our cost will come down. I feel that it is not giving us the strong industrial base for our economy or for defense system. So somebody, if he's buying equipment from the outside and only assembling in India and then supplying to the defense system, it is not going to resolve the long requirement of our system. So tomorrow, if you need the spare parts, again, you have to depend on the foreign OEM only. Considering that the content of indigenized content, which has been increased now, has given some relief, but then it takes long time to implement those acquisition in the new equipments. So whatever we have existing infrastructure today, equipment, still we are following the same system, and it is giving a lot of constraints in our in development of our defense ecosystem. So what I was saying, that the main crux of the entire system, if you see, the first requirement of the raw material. See, even though you can take design from the outside, you can take the design knowledge from the outside, but if the manufacturing is with you and ecosystem can develop over that, with the time you can capture those areas also. So I have seen over the period of time, these foreign OEMs, when they supply the equipment, they are not allowing us to enter in the strategic raw material. And that gives a lot of constraint to our development of our defense ecosystem. Second part is our defense testing infrastructure. Number of cases I have seen that even though you have a right type of product, right quality of material, right quality of design, but because of the lack of testing in the proper way, you are not able to enter or not able to introduce our own indigenization content. So I hope the change in the defense acquisition policy, where the emphasis on the indigenization content and also the giving that negative import list, it is possible to increase our defense manufacturing. And in that area, I will just like to touch upon the few points. And there is one of the major parts is the strategic raw material. And today, unfortunately, in India, the raw material required itself, we are depending on the foreign source. And I am talking about the basic one, even the ingredients. Let's talk about the nickel. You talked about the cobalt. You talk about the niobium, which is a refractory metals. Entire raw material, we are depending on the import. And then only those things, even though we have the knowledge in our country that we can make the alloy, we can make the products, we can make the special steel, we can make the titanium alloys, but then still we are depending on the import of the strategic raw material. I think the route we have to strike from there, and that will give a good flip and good change in our defense manufacturing ecosystem. And added to that, the testing infrastructure also has to be improved in the country. I think those things are taken care of from the root. It is possible. And in this entire supply value chain, I think the defense PSU has a main role to play along with the DRDO. And if those combinations are there, this defense PSU also will grow along with our entire industry. Today, we have to also appreciate that more than 8,000 MSME, they are connected with the defense ecosystem. So already we are supporting more than 8,000 MSME, and it is possible to further grow with us. And in addition to that, if the technology is growing, as our friend from HAL was telling, that poaching and going people from government to private sector, even though to go also and try to develop in the country, it is benefit for the nation. But then, as I said, we should not duplicate the system. We should try to complement each other. then only it is possible to have a holistic growth, and that will make India on par with the international companies. And let's not talk about only working for the Indian requirements. If defense industry has to grow, we have to enter in the export market. And that is where, if you see our defense export, the target is set for the $5 billion for the next couple of years. So there's a lot of our emphasis should be on the export. Then only our infrastructure or the facility, whatever we create to meet our defense requirements, can sustain. So with this few of my thought here, I thought I will just close that. Let's have a system where the defense PSU along with the private sector should join together and work towards a good defense, create a defense ecosystem in the country. It will not only work for the defense. I have seen the number of infrastructure you create for the defense. It will also meet the requirement of either railway, power sector, so many areas. There's a possibility is there, and it is possible to compete. Mining. So with this few of my thought, I want to close here. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Jha, CMD Midhani. I think you made some very valid points. Somewhere you alluded to competition happening amongst the DPSUs and PSUs. I think that is inadvertently, sometimes it does happen. You spoke about the foreign OEMs, how they ensure that the spares are not there, and perhaps that is a kind of a racket that is there, so that needs to be stemmed. You spoke of the raw material, importance of raw material, strategic raw material, and I think there was a very interesting point you said that we have to grow the Indian market and get respected in the Indian market by exporting and then coming to India. That's the way our credibility will go up. I think very, very valid points. Please stay with us. Then we will have further discussion. Now, Mr. M.V. Rajshekhar, CMD BML, all yours.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Chairman Saab, and good evening, my co-panelists. When I see Deepak Saab in front of me, it looks almost like an internal review of BML, but no. So, yes, sir. So the 9 DPSUs and 41 ordnance factories together, we almost contribute around 51,000 crores to the GDP. This looks a big figure. I mean, tremendous job done by the DPSUs and the ordnance factories, no doubt. But this constitutes only the 30% of the total requirement of the armed forces. Still, we are importing 70% of the things. So that means there is a big opportunity not only for the DPSUs, the ordnance factories, but many MSMEs and private industries. There's a big bread to eat. 70% of the present requirement is still coming from abroad. So this you have to really fill in the gap. The problem with imports is, as Jha Saab also told and Hota Saab also told, when the things get obsolete, it's very difficult to get spares. We have seen equipments lying dead in the fields for want of spare parts not coming from abroad. And we have seen one European manufacturer actually is troubling us, is fleecing us, twisting our arms. So these are the things that are happening. Now, the best thing is the government has come out with a negative list of equipments, and we have seen 101 equipments last year and another 108 equipments this year. This is very encouraging. We have seen really 12 equipments really we can develop in the next 3 years. We are expecting actually a turnover of 300 to 500 crores from these 12 equipments alone from this negative list. So that's a big opportunity for BML. I'm sure many industries, all DPSUs, private industries and all must be eyeing at this list, and it's very encouraging. And what we have to look at is the ministry also regularly following up now. The reviews with the ministry are now not just sales and production now. They are reviewing all these things now. How you have entered into a contract with a foreign OEM? Is it just a TOT? Now the TOT approach they're not giving, no TOT. So what happens with the TOT? Today we buy the technology, and after 8 years, 9 years time, again the technology is getting obsolete, and there is no way to develop the spare parts in house. So there's no question of TOT. So what they're telling is, it should be the co-production or the co-development, or with guaranteed indigenization commitment from the foreign OEM. For that, they are giving an approval for foreign OEMs to invest up to a limit of 75% now. So it should encourage them to come daringly and put the shops inside, and along with partnership with the public sectors and private sectors, and start indigenizing. Just 2 examples I want to tell in this case. I think recently we rolled out mechanical minefield marking equipment. This is in the second negative list. So there is an order, army tender for 56 equipments. This equipment was developed through public-private partnership. This is a beautiful example. Designed by DRDO, R&D engineers, BEML platform, and developed by 3 MSMEs. So it was built in their firm. We gave all the parts, we all gave the parts and technology to the MSIP firms. They built in their own factory, and it was rolled out. This equipment can put the poles and the ropes around the minefields. It can cover 1.6 kilometers in 1 hour. Otherwise, for army jawans today, it's taking around full 1 day it is taking. And now we are putting for trials. After the trials, these 56 equipments that which you are looking at 300 crores of the order, we'll be getting. Now, what now again the government is telling? This testing, shortening the testing time, how to test it. So this again, I think almost every month they are having a review meetings with the DPSUs. They are reviewing with us. We are all participating. JASA is also participating there. SK JASA also. How to shorten the testing time? I mean, in normal times, this minefield marking equipment will take 3.5 to 4 years. And by the time everybody lose track of this project, and 300 and 400 crores, what you are imagining now, it just becomes a dream. So that's why a lot of plans are going on. How to have a remote inspection, how to have a sample inspection. If the same platform equipment is inspected already, why the bloody hell DGQA has to inspect all these equipments from raw material stage to this stage? Only the special features what have been added on the existing platform, what have been tested, should only be tested. So all the conditions are putting, I think in all probability, I think they will take commitment from DGQA and the DPSUs or the suppliers of the equipment to give a commitment how many days it will take to completely prove the equipment. That day will come. Then what happens is most of the companies will be very much interested in coming forward in developing this. Most of the projects are getting killed or people are losing interest because of this of long gestation time. By the time product is developed, it is already obsolete. And then the spare parts are not available. And then the technology has changed. The enemy has advanced. And then one more thing is when you get all this from imports and all that, we don't know tomorrow which is the friendly country, which is the enemy country. Tomorrow the equations are changing. Therefore, co-production, co-development, much faster cycle time for inspection and trials. These are the mantras now, which the government is really pushing all of them. And we have seen, I think, in Hota Saab, I think in the last this one said that really the review meetings have changed now. Earlier it used to be blindly, what is the turnover, what is the production, what is the number of employees who retired and all that, but it's totally changed. See, almost a total review meetings are not, I mean, they are not covering even sales and production now, completely on this. For example, as the Hota Saab told, growth strategy. It is a first agenda point, sir. Compulsorily, they are asking now, how do you come out with the growth strategy? This growth strategy is only to find the technologies and how to make the organization agile. Agility of DPSUs, how to make it. That is one of the, it has to cover the agenda point. So we are all committing there, and we already engaged most of our 90% of study is over. And I think Vidhan is also doing, and I think they already made the PO also. And it is a compulsory. And second agenda point now, they are reviewing on IPRs. So that means they are giving a lot of importance to the R&D developments and the patents, they have intellectual properties they are registering. And since last week, I have seen they're asking what is the commercial benefit you got from the IPR. That means the government is understanding this, the importance of these technologies and agility in organization and all that. So they are really forcing that. And I hope a lot of improvement will be there. And so last month, actually, there was DPSUs. Normally, people think that DPSUs are enjoying a monopoly and all that. But that is not so. No? We don't know the spelling of monopoly also. Since long, we have been in an extremely competitive environment. And 90% of our orders are through competitive nature only. And that too, we fight with not the small companies, multinationals, Komatsu, Hitachi, Caterpillar, and Bombardier, Alstom. These are the companies we fight with. So we'll still wait to get. So yes. with the government's new initiative on this, improving the agility of this one, and concentrating on public-private partnership, and concentrating on the innovation capabilities inside. So things should look well. So that's all. These are a lot of opportunities, plenty of opportunities. But DPSUs, we have done a great job, but this is not sufficient. In the next 4 years, the job what DPSUs have to be is that it has to be in different direction. It has to be different speed. It has to be with a different attitude. That's why this growth strategies also will become important.
Thank you. I think I'm getting calls from the organizers. 6:40, we have to close.
Yes.
What I'll do is just quickly summarize what you said and some very interesting points. You spoke about the big trucks, where we were not getting qualified. Metro also, driverless train, how we managed to get PMO to help us with the qualification. That's very important. But because 80 to 90% of the business of EML is through open competition with the private sector and the best in the world, the consequence of that is it is very difficult for BML to grow.
Yeah.
So, we must understand and appreciate we have not really grown the way we should have. So perhaps then you also spoke about the self-certification and shortening the testing time. Very good points. We will see if we get some time in the end to close. So then I will take it, last first. So anyway, Mr. Chatterjee is not there. So Dr. Jha, you would like to add anything about, I think you were very specific in what you said. So in your way forward, you are talking of collaboration among the DPSUs. You are talking about testing facility infrastructure. Would you like to get a little more specific on this so that, GCTC can then take it forward and give it as a specific recommendation?
Yeah, I would like to mention that point, what I was trying to say. For raw material, for a strategic raw material, we should have a policy where we can take a call that whatever we are importing today from the elsewhere for our existing fleet or for our future requirements, it should be developed within the country and should be replaced. And for that, you require whatever the supporting, like certifying agencies which are involved in our different certification stages, or even the users in our services. I think that type of changes are required, and then that can be useful for India. That is a part of Indianization.
But Dr. Jha, you have to take the customer into confidence because he may not have the confidence. So therefore, because at the end of the day, we all buy imported cars, we buy imported stuff. Same thing made in India, we have our hang-ups in buying it. And it takes a long time, and there's a variety of reasons also, rightly so.
Yeah,
I not happen so fast.
I do agree with you, but then some day we have to take a call. Then only we can go towards that. That is the one point I wanted to make. Second, I said that DPSU or the private sector, if they are all working together, it will be helpful. Otherwise, if you try to have a similar facility, whatever, let's say if the BML is having, and same facility is coming in some other private sector also. If it is the necessity is there, you want to have more requirements there, fine. But then duplicating may not be useful. A specific targeting only for the defense.
Dr. Jha, there was a time when your predecessor, Dr. Likhi, had come and seen one of our ancillary companies called Vignan Industries. That made a strategic fit for Midhani. And if I were you, I would have taken that from BML. We would have worked it out, but you guys didn't. And as a result, we have had to close. We are right now closing that plant. And the livelihoods of those people, of course, we are protecting by getting them into BML. So this is how, facilities get created. But historically, if you see, VIL was actually thrust upon BML by the Karnataka government. So, so much for cooperation. But I think we should not despair and move forward. Anything you have to say, Rajshekhar ji?
Yes, sir. Actually, the stopping of VL was actually we delayed for 1 year, saying that Mithan is interested in that. So actually, the death of VL, actually we could postpone by 1 year, sir. Actually, hoping that.
I'll take you, to be frank with you. We are not having expertise in running the castings the way it was there. In fact, our casting is on high tech area, that is on ICP, that is investment casting. So there we are making the products and supplying. The casting which is coming in your complex, probably it is useful for the people who are working for the railway. Let's say if they are having the railway business, they can do that. But that is where we had, see, normally Midhani, you ask Midhani ordinary steel, Midhani will fail. If you ask a specialist steel, we will give you the
Okay, this question is both for Rajshekhar, Dr. Jha, as well as Mr. Chatterjee, if he's there. Can you guys give some suggestion on how do we really get to improve the exports? It is being mandated, MOU, ministry, all that is fine. But we really have a long way to go. Any quick suggestions?
I say that whatever was told, the freedom, see, if you go international market, a lot of issue is there that time required for delivery is very less. They will not give you the more time. I am talking about the raw material side, but again, for the defense equipments, there is other aspects are there. And also the freedom to select. See, normally in business, unless you have an agent there, you cannot give the product, cannot be going depending on the countries.
There is a catch-22 situation.
Yeah.
There was a time when BML, we had offices in Brazil, Shanghai, Indonesia, etc., etc. We say we have exported to 68 countries. We've exported to the African subcontinent. But having said that, do we really have the bandwidth? And these markets have to really be cultivated. Do we have the long-term? You have seen Mahindra Group, how much they went abroad and how much money they lost. Do we have that kind of patience? So, there are no easy answers. But what I would say is, of late, the kind of thrust that is coming from the government, very, very positive. And they are there to support us. In fact, there was a time when one of the erstwhile defense secretaries had told us, give us a list of companies. And there is a lot of spare capacity for defense companies in East European countries, which he said, you give me a list and we will see whether you guys should take them over instead of, importing through them. So those kind of revolutionary, change in mindset, that kind of thing has to come. Paradigm shift, which can change. Rajshekhar, anything you want to say on the exports?
Yes, sir. Particularly, as I told them, the importance of the ministry reviews is started on exports also, sir. Now, so they are asking us, please, whichever country is there, please tell us. We'll also follow up. So that's what we have seen, some change. Like Bangladesh, really it helps, sir. So now we were expecting a tender from Bangladesh for some of our construction equipments. The ministry really involved and definitely it got accelerated by 4.
There are two aspects on the exports, because exports was something very close to my heart. Yeah. One is there is a definition of Indian company which got changed some time back. Today, a foreign company can set shop in India and he gets a benefit of line of credit funding. And I have to go and compete with them. There was a case where a Chinese company, sorry, I shouldn't name the country, some foreign company in India exported to Bangladesh. So we have been taking up, I was heading the FICCI chair and we took it up with the government, Commerce Ministry. Hopefully that will happen. The second thing on the exports is that we really have to, what would I say, getting dealers. There, some certain things are not very milky white and transparent. You understand what I mean? So being PSUs, and as I think somebody mentioned, Mr. Chatterjee mentioned about, the various issues, CVC, CAG, etc., etc. So we really, people are, obviously, they would be scared of it. So going abroad and doing business, you have to be willing to lose some money. You saw what happened to one SsangYong company, which was taken over by Mahindra. They lost money, but they had the bandwidth, they had the appetite, they had the, money to do it. So exports, of course, today with the defense ministry really supporting us, I'm sure a lot of exports will happen. I think we have gone to all the embassies, Indian embassies. There are defense attaches there who are taking this up. So I think we have a long way to go. Last comments, Rajshekhar ji, anything you have?
Yes, one more point is that particularly whenever the Indian line of credit is there, so that we are insisting with the government should say that, like how the foreign European companies are also telling, or even Japanese companies, the Indian companies only should be given the priority there. No question of tendering, the tendering, everything has to be among the Indian companies only, if it is Indian line of credit. So that we are, as an industry, we are all forcing on the government to bring that.
Yeah, but you can't tell the government what is the definition of Indian company. If I am an outside foreign country company, I come and invest in India, I would like to be considered, because I have invested. So there are no easy answers to this.
Not just Indian company. For example, in a different country, where, for example, country X, country Y is eligible there. Now, we may not be in India. So they have shortlisted the tender for Y and they accepted the tender. Then we had made a lot of some hangama we did, and we ensured that the tender is cancelled on Y.
Yeah, don't spill out your trade secrets. I think we'll keep it for another discussion. Dr. Jha, your last word before we hand over to the organizers. It's 6:41. 1 minute is left.
Yeah, so overall, what message has come that we are capable and we are also getting the opportunities. Only thing is that we should be competitive, and then only we can survive. I think this is the mantra in today.
Okay.
And I am sure that as the volume of business is increasing, Indian Defense PSU also will do very well. And as Dr. Rajsekhar has rightly told, a lot of exports we are getting. We are Midhani also, we have this year also, we have double almost from previous year to this year. And I am seeing that more and more opportunities are there. May not be only in defense, it can be other sector also. So
thank you very much. I think the DPSUs, PSUs in general, we have to reinvent ourselves. There are a lot of challenges, but I would say these challenges are actually opportunities. And this is the only way we can really become world class. Unless you face some pressure, if you're going to move away from getting business on nomination mode into, you know, getting business on competitive basis, that's the only way to grow. We will end on that positive note. And we are very, very positive with Aatmanirbhar, Make in India, slew of policy interventions by the government. It augurs well for the DPSUs. Thank you very much. And thank you, GCTC, for giving me the opportunity for chairing the session. And thank you, my fellow panelists.